Hello, people. How are you doing today? It's Makeda Valletta, also known as the Body Scientist. And in case you're unfamiliar with me, I am an exercise physiologist, a sports nutritionist, a holistic nutritionist, a doula, a sacred sexual educator who has committed who has committed my entire life to studying all the ways we could take our body to its highest level. My academic background is in exercise and sports science with a biotechnology background, did some graduate work in applied physiology and nutritional biochemistry, and just completed a master's in medical cannabis science and therapeutics. Studying the immune system and studying the immune system is something I have been really serious about since the 90s, okay? Since the 90s, when I started learning in my 10th grade biology class about how important it is to protect your microbiome. And I'm very much into genetic diseases. Genetic diseases and infectious diseases is something that I'm really into, and the immune system, right? And I said that I'm a sacred sexual educator, but and a lot of people don't understand what that is. And I have videos where I speak about that on my other YouTube page, the Renaissance Amazon. I have a few videos where I speak about that. If you want to know, you can inbox me or hit me on YouTube because I'm live on Instagram, but I will repost this on my YouTube channel, The Body Scientist 81. If you hit me, I can direct you to the videos. In the past, I have done videos about vaginal and penile health. Okay, so if you followed me, this is something I've been talking about for years, and I did a video about a decade ago called Toxic Condoms. Okay, and at that time, I was nervous to make the video because I was nervous about backlash and just how much people have been indoctrinated to believe that condoms are the best and the only way to prevent infectious diseases and to prevent pregnancy. I don't believe they're definitely not the only way, and I don't believe they're the best way either. Okay, and so if you follow my work, you know I'm very much into what I put in my skin, what I put in the air that I'm breathing. So air quality, what I'm putting in my skin, my food, all of that. Okay, when I'm putting in my hair, all that stuff. When I'm putting in my scalp, all of that matters when it comes to our health. And the vaginal, we shouldn't put anything on our skin that we can't eat. Okay, things can go through our skin and get into our body, into our blood very easily. So if that's the true with our skin, and our skin is a part of our immune system, okay? Let's not forget that. Your skin is a part of your immune system, a huge part of our immune system. It protects what comes in and out of our body. And so it's very important to maintain the microbiome on our skin. It's also critical to maintain the microbiome in your gut. And there's a vaginal microbiome that is critical to maintain. The pH, the vaginal pH and the microbiome are interconnected, okay? If the microbiome is off, the pH is going to be off, okay? Because the pH is coming from the bacteria, okay? It's important for women to have a lot of acid-producing bacteria in their vaginal canal. Semen is very alkaline. The vagina is very acidic. An alkaline vagina is a breeding ground for disease, okay? So you have acid-producing, hydrogen peroxide-producing bacteria like the lactobacillus family that are critical for not just preventing infections, but also preventing all kinds of miscarriages and pregnancy issues within women, okay? The skin is the first line of defense, right? So then that's the problem with injecting vaccines inside of you, because it is going naturally you become exposed to infectious organisms. Okay, I have videos where I've been talking about the importance of maintaining your gut microbiome. I did my first video on that. I did 12 years ago. Okay, on my page, The Body Scientist 81. It can also be found on my YouTube page, on my Instagram page. So I've been studying this since the 90s, and I've been talking about it on social media since over a decade. So the good bacteria on your skin and the good bacteria in your gut and in your vaginal canal is your first line of defense against all infectious diseases, okay? All of it. Also, there are a lot of natural things that kill all viruses and bacteria, okay? Lipid-contained viruses, such as the herpes virus, the HIV virus, the C19 virus, and what else? HIV virus. Those are all lipid contained, which means they're contained in a lipid bilayer. Okay, there's a lipid layer around it. So coconut oil destroys that. Okay, coconut, and this is well documented. If you don't believe me, you can go Google and you will see. There are many studies that talk about how lauric acid, and coconut oil is like 80-90% lauric acid. Lauric acid, which turns into monolaurin, kills lipid-contained viruses. Okay, so coconut oil is one of the most coconut oil is one of the most potent antimicrobials, antiviral, antibacterial. And if somebody had the HIV virus, they should be taking coconut oil. They should be consuming it every day, because there are many studies that show that people who have HIV, consuming coconut oil greatly decreases their viral load. Okay, so yeah, coconut oil is one of them. Also, aloe vera. Okay, aloe vera, which is something that we can all get very easily. It's very well documented. It's a very potent antimicrobial. And both coconut oil and aloe vera do not destroy the microbiome in the vaginal canal. There are yoni steams that was practiced in many parts of the world by women, where they took herbs, put it in a pot of water, and sat over it. And I have videos where I speak about that. So there are many very potent antimicrobial herbs. Cannabis is one of them. Okay, so like cannabis infused coconut oil, even more potent than just coconut oil by itself. Okay, so and none of these things destroy the microbiome and the vaginal flora. So the thing I want to say about condoms, and again, I made a video about this recently, so I made a video about this a few months ago, actually, about condoms being connected to ovarian cancer and cervical cancer because of the toxic chemicals they put on it. Okay, first of all, they're putting spermicide a lot of times on it, which, just like you don't want to use any antibacterial agents, any artificial antibacterial agents. You don't want to take antibiotics, okay? And you don't want to use like antibacterial soap and those hand sanitizers. That destroys your microbiome. It kills all of the bad bacteria and the good bacteria. And the good bacteria are your first line of defense against infectious organisms. I'm not going to explain it super in depth because I have several videos where I explain this, and I'll be talking for an hour. So if you want the videos, I mean, you can search my page, but if you can't find them, I'll send them to you. So I'm trying to make this fast, but when your first line of defense is that the good bacteria, and when you use artificial antibacterial agents, it kills them all, and then the good bacteria and the bad bacteria compete for colony space in your gut or in your skin, in the vaginal canal. The bad bacteria are more aggressive and they mutate. Okay, and then that's how you get super strains where the antibiotics don't work anymore. And you've probably seen several news stories about antibiotic-resistant STDs and there's a whole lot of antibiotic-resistant infections, period. And you don't have to have sex to get a so-called STD. You don't even have to have sex to get them. They are contact infections, okay? And there are many infections that you can get from contact, from the food that you eat, from the water that you drink. Okay, the food that we eat, most of it that we eat in America is coming from another country, coming from across the country, and it's not inspected. And it's very easy for someone to do biological warfare in our food. Okay, we have seen news stories where there's an outbreak of something in some produce or some meat, and we don't find it out until some people die first, right? So you never know when you might get exposed to infectious disease. This is the reason why it's important to keep your immune system up and be conscious of what's necessary to keep it up. And coming in contact with infectious organisms is what strengthens our immune system anyway. When you have a healthy microbiome and you become exposed to something, it actually strengthens you against that. You won't get infected. You get infected if your microbiome is off and you have your internal environment is welcoming to this organism. Again, I speak about this more in depth in other videos. I'm not going to go super explaining that right now because I'll be talking for a long time. So I have other videos where I explain that. Basically, good and bad bacteria have different requirements for life. Like you can't take a tropical plant and put it in the desert. It's going to die. It's not enough water, okay? It's not the climate that it needs. And if you take a desert plant and put it in the rainforest, it's going to die because it's way too much water. So they have different requirements for life. You know, we can't go jump in the ocean and live. There's plenty of life in the ocean, but we will suffocate. Even though there's oxygen in the ocean, it's not the right percentage of oxygen we need. And the creatures in the ocean can't come and live in our house, even though we have oxygen. You know, H2O. There's oxygen in the water, but it's not the right percentage. And so we would die if we try to go live in the ocean, and the sea creatures would die if they came and lived in our house. There's different requirements for life. So if you go jump in the ocean, you're going to drown and die. Okay, that's not the environment that you need for human survival. So the same thing is true with infectious organisms and bacteria, infectious bacteria. Whether or not they can thrive depends on whether or not that environment, that micro ecosystem, is welcoming to it. We all have a micro ecosystem. Okay, it's called the microbiome in our skin, the microbiome in our gut, the microbiome in the vaginal canal. Okay, there's an oral microbiome too. So if you destroy that, okay, you're opening yourself up to infections, okay, and all kinds of other illnesses. Almost everything is connected to our microbiome. So you want to protect it at all costs. And most people have been given several rounds of antibiotics. They're using antibacterial soap at home. You're eating regular food that has lots of pesticides and herbicides on it. So it's a constant attack. So unless you are making a conscious effort of consuming fermented foods every single day, maybe taking probiotics every single day, avoiding artificial antibacterial agents all the time. If you're not doing that, then you probably have an imbalance, okay? So with that being said, I'm just going to say, oops. Okay, I have some notes because some people were asking me, oh, what do we do? What do I use? And like I said, I've made several videos about this. I suggest you look at them, but I just wanted to go through this again quickly because latex does irritate a lot of women, right? And again, you want to think about the vaginal microbiome staying intact and how absorbent the mucous membranes are. Okay, our skin is very absorbent, but the mucous membranes in our body, which is the vaginal canal, anal, mouth, those mucous membranes are super absorbent. Okay, in the vaginal canal, the vaginal tissue is the most absorbent tissue in the body. So we should be careful what we put in our mouth, but we should be careful what we put in our vagina, and putting something that is covered in chemicals, spermicide, which destroys spermicide, artificial spermicide, because there's natural antibacterial agents and there's natural spermicides, such as lemon juice and apple cider vinegar. Those things do not destroy the microbiome in the vagina, okay? But when you're using the artificial spermicides, it's like taking antibiotics and antibacterial agents. It really wreaks havoc with the microbiome, and sometimes it's something that you can never recover from, okay? And so, whatchamacallit? So there's spermicide, and a lot of times there's lubricants, okay? And you hear water-based lubricant, silicone-based lubricant. Doesn't matter if it's water-based, okay? People hear water-based and they think, oh, it's water. No, it's water with a whole bunch of chemicals in it, okay? And there's so much information. Like, look up the chemicals in the spermicide. Just choose one. And you're going to have to dig. You have to write the right questions in Google, because a lot of times when you first search these things, it says, oh, it's not toxic. It's not toxic. But if you keep searching and ask the right questions, you will find the right studies that show that, oh, it is indeed it is indeed toxic. So I'm going to tell you some things. So according to the National Toxicology Program, okay, so you have latex condoms and then you have non-latex condoms, because so many people have a problem with latex. And somebody having a science background, I can tell you a lot of scientists develop latex allergies, and it could be super irritating, okay? And I definitely don't believe in trying to solve one problem by causing another. So you're trying to avoid getting an infection by getting cancer. Like, that's not the solution to me, okay? So you have non-latex condoms, like ones that are made from polyisoprene and polyurethane, right? So, okay, with that being said, according to the National Toxicology Program, isoprene is, quote, reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen based on animal studies, okay? So, like, when we first Google it, the first things you find, oh, it's not toxic, it's not toxic, it's not toxic. And when you Google toxicology studies, okay, and this is what I do on this page, I pay attention to science and scientific studies, and I have been for over 20 years, okay? And I know the average person doesn't. They don't know how to search this stuff. They don't know how to understand this stuff. So I translate it to you, right? And it's going to be hard for you to get the truth from the medical community or from the news, because they're all bought out by big pharma, okay? Think about this. People have been on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. People have been having sex on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. These so-called STDs have been around, okay, minus HIV, and that's I can make a whole video about that. And I'll probably do that for my subscription, so I don't end up getting my page taken down for talking about that. But all these so-called STDs have been around since before humans. They've been around since before us, okay? So, and people have been having sex for hundreds of thousands of years. So, and there were no condoms. Okay. So why wasn't there an epidemic of STDs? Because there wasn't. Okay. They existed, but they weren't. And they just keep getting worse and worse. I asked that question when I was like very young, when I was like a teenager, because one of my aunts told me, I feel sorry for your generation because, when I was your age, my aunt, she's in her 80s now. She's like, when I was your age, all we had to really worry about was getting pregnant. Like, she was like, STDs were around and people had them, but it wasn't that popular. So when my aunt told me that, I started to wonder, well, why has it become such an epidemic? Okay. And that led me to understanding about how our microbiomes are destructed. Okay. And there's a lot I could say about that. And I have videos that I've done about that. So I'm not going to go super down that rabbit hole. Okay. But so when you first Google a polyisoprene condom safe and non-toxic, the first things you see is that, oh, it's safe, it's not toxic. When you really dig and look at the toxicology reports, you find out that that's not the case. Okay. So according to and you can look this up, according to the National Toxicology Program, isoprene is considered to be reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen. And this is based on animal studies. Isoprene is a synthetic rubber that is chemically and physically similar to natural rubber, okay? And is made from petroleum-derived raw materials. Now, petroleum is super toxic, okay? Vaseline is made from petroleum. I would never put Vaseline on my skin, okay? Toxic, okay? And is used to make tires and surgical gloves as well. Workers in the tire and rubber industry have an increased risk of cancer, okay? Lung cancer, bladder cancers, and stomach cancers. So the people who work around this stuff have a higher incidence of cancer. So does it make sense to be putting that in our vaginas all the time? Okay, just a little question. And it can affect men too. I know you've seen studies that all the men's testicles have PFAs in it, okay? Which are microplastics, okay? There's microplastics being found in the testicles of every man, all right? So, and then you have, okay, so now a lot of them have silicone-based lubricants. The silicones can contain PFAs and it can release toxic chemicals, especially when exposed to a fatty substance or at a high temperature. Now, for those of you who don't know what PFAs are, they're very toxic forever chemicals, okay, that are around. And so silicones can contain that, and they release toxic chemicals. And it says, especially when exposed to a fatty substance or at a high temperature. Isn't it at a high temperature during sex? I don't know, like, okay. Now, silicone can have lead, okay, silicone. Now, you have silicone-based lubricants. And women have silicone sex toys. So silicone can have lead, phthalates, phthalates are hormone endocrine disruptors that are forever chemicals. Silicone can have cyclic siloxanes, cadmium, and other metals. Silicone is technically a plastic polymer, and it's very stable, but small pieces can still break off and enter our waterways. Okay? Now, again, you have to dig to find this because when you first Google, is silicone safe? It's like, oh, yeah, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe. Because they know the average person is not going to dig and look at scientific studies. So they want to tell you that because they're trying to sell you stuff, okay? Polyurethane condoms, okay, because those and other non-latex condoms are polyurethane. Polyurethane condoms are more likely to slip off and break, and it's a thin plastic that contains phthalates and oftentimes BPA. Okay, a lot of people know BPA is some toxin that comes from plastic because you often see BPA-free plastic, and a lot of times when you see BPA-free plastic, they have other chemicals, derivatives of BPA in it anyway that's more toxic. Okay, so there are, and I did it again. I did a video about vaginal and penile, maintaining vaginal and penile health. Okay. So whatever infectious disease somebody is trying to prevent, they should understand that it doesn't matter if it's an infectious disease on your skin, in your lungs, on your feet, on your vagina, in your throat, in your ears, okay? An infection is an infection. And an infection happens when that area is providing the ideal environment for that infectious organism to thrive, okay? This is why you have some people, like you can have somebody who's around this, you can have 5 people around a sick person, and 2 of those people get sick, the other 3 don't. It has to do with their microbiome and their microecosystem. You can have 10 people eat some E. coli infested lettuce. 2 of those people die, 2 throw up, the others are fine. It has to do with your own microecosystem. So whether or not somebody gets infected with something has everything to do with your microecosystem. If you are exposed to something and your microecosystem does not provide the the ideal environment for it to thrive, it's going to die. Just like if you jump in the ocean, you're going to drown and die. And if you take a desert plant and put it in the rainforest, it's going to die, and vice versa. Nothing has to be done. It's just what's going to happen, because all living organisms have specific requirements for life. So if a woman has a lot of lactic acid producing bacteria in her vagina and hydrogen peroxide producing bacteria coming in contact with any, that won't be able to survive. Now, there's also been studies. Now, I'm not one of those people that does all those technological videos where I'm going to be putting things on the screen. Maybe one day, but right now, look, you're going to have to get the information how you get it. So now with the toxins, okay, found in lubricants, I'm looking at this this site right now, womensvoices.org, okay, womenvoices.org, and there's a whole article about toxic lubricants. And I'm just going to read it to you because I can't show it to you. It says, harsh chemical ingredients found in lubricants can also be toxic to vaginal tissue and its microbiome. Okay, vaginal exposure to toxic lubricant ingredients can lead to discomfort, irritation, and increased risk of infection from even short-term exposure. Some lubricant ingredients also have the potential to cause longer-term chronic health effects, including cancer and reproductive problems from repeated exposure over many years. Okay, so you're using a condom to help prevent pregnancy or to help prevent a disease. This condom is made from toxic plastics and rubbers, okay, that release toxic things into your body. Then it's covered with spermicide, which destroys the microbiome in your vaginal canal and causes the bad bacteria to mutate and form superstrains. Then the natural vaginal fluids have antimicrobial properties, okay? Mucus is a part of our immune system. People say a lot of incorrect things about mucus. Mucus is a part of our immune system, okay? It helps to bring things out, okay? And vitamin A is important for that, okay? So the natural mucus in the vaginal canal has antimicrobial properties. So look it up if you don't believe me. So if you're using a condom that is now drying out the vaginal canal, so now and it's causing friction and pain and irritation and swelling. So now you have to use a water-based lubricant or a silicone-based lubricant that's full of chemicals that are causing reproductive problems, cancers, and destroying your microbiome. So it's even further contributing to the destruction of your immune system, which opens you up to way more infections, okay? It is, practically, cancers, okay? And I made a video before, cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, every kind of cancer, anal cancer, every kind of cancer is an epidemic right now, okay? And it's not a mystery when you understand things that I understand. And then it can cause reproductive problems. Okay, so now, some of the chemicals that's in these lubricants. You have chlorohexadiene gluconate, okay? Now, this is something that's found in lubricants for sex, okay? So the chlorohexadiene gluconate, this potent disinfectant chemical has been shown to kill off many strains, okay, of lactobacillus. I just talked about how important that is. A type of bacteria that, when in balance, are necessary for a healthy vagina. That's what I told you, okay? So the lubricant got chemical in it that kills it all off. And then you have parabens, okay? Parabens, commonly methylparaben or propylparaben, these preservative chemicals have been shown to cause irritation of vaginal mucous membranes. Exposure to parabens is associated with genital rashes. Studies have also linked parabens to fertility problems and endocrine disruption. Okay? Another thing that's causing fertility problems and endocrine disruption, okay? Parabens, also in the lubricants. We're not even talking about the condoms anymore. We're talking about the lubricants that you need. And you can't use coconut oil because didn't I read about one of the condoms where it said if it comes in contact with a fatty substance, which is coconut oil, it makes it more toxic. So you can't use the natural thing that's good because it's going to make the condom more toxic. So you got to use this toxic lubricant instead. It's a lose-lose situation, okay? So next, you have cyclomethicone, okay, which is another chemical that is commonly found in lubricants. And it says Commonly found in silicone-based lubricants, these substances are linked to reproductive harm and uterine cancer in animal studies. Almost no research has ever been conducted to examine the long-term impacts of vaginal exposure to these chemicals in women. Okay, so this is the third thing I'm reading about that's in the lubricants. We're not even talking about the condoms anymore, because if you're new to this video and you didn't hear what I was saying in the beginning, go back and listen. Because I mean, how many toxic chemicals are there between the condoms and the lubricants? Okay. So the next thing, you got undisclosed flavors or fragrances, which is always crazy to me when people would be consuming, like having strawberry condoms and stuff. Like, there's no way that's healthy, okay? Strawberry candy is not even freaking healthy, all right? So the generic ingredients, flavor and fragrance or aroma represent a combination of undisclosed chemicals. Numerous harmful chemicals can be included in flavors, fragrances, and aromas, including carcinogens, reproductive toxins, and allergens, okay? Not to mention that a lot of them also have glycerin, okay? And glycerin destroys the microbiome in the vagina as well. All right? So, I mean, I use critical thinking skills, all right? I'm just going to say that. That's number one. Number two, I do have an extensive background in science. I have an extensive background in the biological sciences and microbiology. I took microbiology over 20 years ago, one of my favorite topics. Very much into infectious disease, very much into the immune system. There's several videos I've made over the past couple of years about jabs, about the issue with those and how jabs, okay, cause autoimmune diseases, all right? People do not understand how the immune system works. And they do not understand, and the immune system has many layers, okay? It's not some simple thing of, oh, let me just cover it up in toxic plastic and this is going to help me, okay? Because if that were the case, why are you not all walking around in plastic suits right now? Because somebody can cough on you, okay? You could get COVID again. You could get the flu. You could get tuberculosis. You could get a lot of stuff, okay, from somebody breathing on you. Why don't you put latex down your throat in case you eat some food that's contaminated? That's not the way that you build your immune system, okay? You don't know when you might get exposed to infectious organisms. People work in the hospital, okay? The gyms, those are two places that you can get all kinds of infectious stuff, you know, hospitals especially. And doctors having all kinds of stuff, you know, but there's infections that you can only get in the hospital. Super strains. And do you know why? Because of the overuse of antibiotics and antivirals, okay? So you just got to think about the fact, and you can go, I've given you a lot of information, you can go do your own research and you can do what you want. I just know that for me, my priority in life has been protecting my microbiome at all costs, and I've been serious about that since the 90s. Like when I was in, when this whole C-19 thing happened, I refused to use antibacterial soap. I refused to use that hand sanitizer unless it was natural, made from like garlic and rosemary. Garlic is another one, very antimicrobial. So I refuse to use that stuff because it destroys your microbiome. I refuse to take the C-19 jab because that destroys your immune system. It can cause all kinds of problems and long-term effects. So you're taking a jab to prevent a little cold that can then lead to serious autoimmune diseases and cancers. There are lots of turbo cancers that have been shown to be associated with the C-19 jab, okay, and others. So if you look at my Instagram page, I constantly post books. Like, I actually have been reading scientific research for over 2 decades, okay? This is something that I eat, live, and sleep and breathe. A lot of people don't care about these conversations. And I've done videos, many videos about microbiomes, infectious disease, vaginal and penile health. And I just did a video about, you know, the cancers, vaginal, ovarian and uterine cancer, and what women are putting in their vagina. I wasn't just talking about condoms, but also tampons and the toilet paper we use. Like, all that stuff is full of, so as a woman, you're using toilet paper to wipe all the time. You get your period, so you're either putting a tampon in or you're using pads. Then you have condoms. There's a lot of things that are touching your vagina and going in your vagina that are full of freaking chemicals. And then you wonder, cancer-causing chemicals at that, and chemicals that disrupt your flora. And then we wonder why do so many women have fibroids? Why do so many women why is ovarian cancer and uterine cancer at these, just increasing in intensity and for younger and younger women? Why? It's not for no reason. It's not. And everything is an epidemic right now. Every kind of cancer is an epidemic in younger and younger people. These kids now are sicker than they've ever been ever since we've been on this planet. Autoimmune diseases of all sorts are on the rise. Everybody's autistic, okay? Like everything is a freaking epidemic. Why? Do you really trust all these things that people just are so quick to trust because they've been telling you all these years that the only way you can prevent an STD or pregnancy is by using this thing that they made, okay? And then it's drying out your vagina and causing you to feel like you have rug burn in your vagina and it's causing your vagina to burn and have rashes. Oh, use this water-based, silicone-based lubricant that's full of more chemicals to throw you off even more. And let's make sure people feel ashamed if they don't do that, because this is the only way that you can prevent it. Just like during C19, they kept saying, oh, how do you prevent getting it? Just wash your hands. Just wash your hands. That's a bunch of BS, okay? Wash your hands is like the last thing on the list. Yeah, washing your hands is important. But there's way more things that come above that when you were trying to prevent that. And when C19 broke out, I wasn't like, oh, now I need to get my immune system up, because I've already been like that. I'm always ready, because you never know when you can be exposed to something. You could travel to foreign lands. You know what I'm saying? So it's important to be conscious of keeping your microbiome up. The microbiome in your gut, the microbiome in your skin, and if you're a woman, the microbiome in your vagina. This is something that you have to be conscious of, and you need to protect and strengthen your microbiome. Okay? So hopefully I made this science understandable for you all. And like I said, I have other videos that I've done on intestinal dysbiosis. I have videos I've done on maintaining vaginal and penile health. I've done videos on Bajos, which are vaginal steams. So you can definitely check those videos out. If you need help finding it, message me and I'll send them to you. But I'm just giving you the information. Think critically about what you want to do. And follow me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, and I will see you guys later. Okay? Bye-bye.